So we've been talking about how empires are bad and empires are wrong. But one of the things that somebody used to tell me all the time is that the reason why people voted for Hitler was because he got the trains to run on time.
Mhm.
And I think that actually speaks to the issue of convenience because one of the most important issues in people's lives is how hard is it to survive? And if it's particularly hard to survive, like in the United States, for decades, if you reach certain criteria, it would guarantee a decent job, it would guarantee decent housing, it would guarantee financial stability for a long time. And because of that, people basically weren't aware of all. Well, let me stop. It's not that they weren't aware, it's the fact that the US was able to paint a very good picture of itself overseas because people were comfortable. It's kind of like that awful friend that you didn't know was awful until things went badly for you. And so when things are going well, then that friend is awesome. But when things are starting to fall apart for you, you kind of start realizing that friend's not great.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. You are under the impression, like you mentioned it before, that why is McDonald's great? It's not that McDonald's is so wonderful. In fact, it's pretty awful, especially since you worked for them.
Yeah.
but basically, it's nice to know what you're getting when you're in unfamiliar circumstances, when you don't know what's going to happen next, when you just need to go to the bathroom, get something to drink, or charge your phone. It's nice to know what you're getting.
Yeah, was relying. I worked for McDonald's. I started working for McDonald's in as a second job because they gave they gave you the benefit of being able to work 2 days a week, 3 days a week. In the end, I think they even let me work for 1 day a week, and not every place does that. And everything was dummy proof. Uh, it was made for dummies. Every step of the process. It was impressive actually, that experience of having worked at McDonald's because each of the steps to get the food fast and warm to the customer, each one of the steps was uh, dummies proof. It really, the design behind everything was made so that you didn't even need to speak English to do your job. Uh, and that translates also into a lot of convenience for me when I was in in during my bicycle trip. uh, there were days where I was very hungry. I knew that I needed a lot of calories. I need them fast. I I didn't want to. I wasn't in the mood of experimenting with God knows what flavor or food uh, I found in the way. I needed something that I knew I was going to like. I knew how much was I going to pay, and I knew somewhere where I could charge my electronics, my GPS, my phone, my earphones, my my lamps, the lamps of my bicycle, etc., etc. I needed a place with Wi-Fi. I needed to a place to refill my water bottles. No questions asked. Um and McDonald's offered me all of that, all every single time. While as there were towns in the middle of nowhere in France that didn't have a Starbucks, didn't have a McDonald's, and I ended up going to friteries or places where they sold fast food like hamburgers or pizzas, but not all of them had Wi-Fi. Not all of them had uh, a clear price of how much was I going to pay. Not all of them had what I was craving for or needed at the time. So that's why I ended up like, for me, even though I'm Mexican, I was feeling like a gringo because I was going after the thing that made me feel like a McDonald's made me feel safe. Uh, Oddly enough, uh, and so those were the kind of places that I used to uh, that I was aiming for at my rest stops whenever I could find those. Uh, and whenever I couldn't, I was disappointed with the food. I was disappointed with the price. Uh, I was somebody gave me the ojos malos if I went into the restroom to refill my water bottles, and or I was taking too long in the restroom because I was doing that, or brushing my teeth or whatever. And McDonald's was always no questions asked. Like nobody uh, gave me the bad eyes for doing so. So I was in. That's why I also. That's one of the benefits of the empire, so to speak.
Well, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that too. I mean, one of the phrases that a lot of folks from the United States will repeat is when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And when you consider that there are so many businesses from the US outside of the US, then that means that, well, where is Rome? Rome is everywhere. And so there are no limitations on where you do things a certain way. And there's a certain comfort in that too. It's like, is it good that the US is everywhere? Well, that's convenient for people from the US. By the way, one of the reasons why I say people from the US and not American is, number one, to call people from the US American and everybody else who's not from the US un American is, number one, racist. Number two, the continent is America, and it's actually Turtle Island,
Hmm.
as referred to by indigenous groups. Like, there's no such thing as just America. America is a continent. So basically, uh, I say people from the U.S., or every now and then I get frisky and I say Usonian because that was determined by Frank Lloyd Wright. And since you're an architect, it makes sense to say that. But basically, there are no clear geographic boundaries for the U.S. So basically, behaving like you're in the US in a lot of different places is very easy, even valid.
I would like to call it. I will. I saw somewhere a meme maybe of somebody proposing to change the name of the United States to Whiteistan. um,
I think there's going to be a lot of that going around. Whiteistan, Klanistan.
yeah, but there's also this Mexican movie. It's a collaboration between Mexico and the United States. It's called Me Estás Matando, Susana. I don't know the name in English, but it translates to You Are Killing Me, Susana, but I don't know if that's the official name. But Gael Garcia is in it, and
the only Mexican we know.
Yeah, besides Diego Luna.
That's right.
And he's invited into a party, and at the party, he disrupts a party, I think. And he's like, no, 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 I am no stranger. I am Susana's husband. And somebody tells him like, oh, okay, well, welcome to America. And he says, well, I was already here, but thank you.
And it's like that's. And also, when you think about the fact that it's like, no, there's a lot of America that is Spanish speaking. Oh no, what will we say to the rednecks who say speak American? It's like there's so many languages. Which one, sir? Please be specific.
Which one of the colonies? Spanish, Portuguese, French, English?
Shush you.
Talking about empires.
Well, and I think. And I think there's also merit in seeing the crumbling empires, as I am not only from a crumbling empire, but as I've been a battery and you've been a battery. Like, I think that there is something valuable about actually looking at these grand behemoths when you have basically just consistently been exploited and misused by them, because you have a perspective of, as is said in The Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. Because it's like, you and I both know that none of these countries work without people like us.
I'm sorry, you said great behemoths?
Behemoths are like giants.
How do you spell that?
Behemotehs.
I've seen the word written, but I didn't know it was pronounced like that.
Well, we like to confuse you. You're welcome. While we also get angry at you for not speaking English. Wait, what? Shh. But no, it's like when... Like, one of the things that I think a lot of people, especially during this point in time, see when they're looking at leaders is they don't actually see charismatic leaders. They see people who have gotten off on everybody else doing everything for them and giving them the benefit of the doubt while they may or may not be fulfilling their responsibilities. And we're just not as impressed anymore. I remember one time when I was in college and I saw Bill Clinton, and this was right after September 11th, and I was sitting there, listening to this man who I was propagandized to vote for when I was younger. I could not vote for Bill Clinton, by the way. I was born in 1980. It would have been impossible for me to vote for anybody until the year... vote for anybody for president until the year 2000. Just want to make that clear. But I'm sitting here listening to him talk about national security and whatnot because, of course, September 11th has just happened. And I'm falling asleep because I'm just like, I don't feel unsafe. And by I don't feel unsafe, I mean, as a black person, I'm not really supposed to ever feel secure, comfortable, or content. I'm supposed to feel distressed, insecure, and constantly be working to impress people around me. So, him talking about dangerous people, it's like, well, I mean, I remember one time when I was uh, walking around with a group of other black friends, and people were staring at us and with frightened expressions. I'm like, we're in the middle of downtown Austin, Texas. What exactly do you think is about to happen here?
Wow.
Right. Well, but no, because the empire tells you what to think. And that's another reason why people choose empire, because thinking for yourself is hard and listening to nonsense is easy. I assume I'm supposed to be afraid of you right now because you're Mexican, and apparently Mexico is not bringing its best, which is very confusing because of many reasons.
Well, that is uh, that is precisely what the U.S. excels at: marketing and bringing back. And I connect that with the like propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
I connect that with the success of globalized chains like McDonald's again, because of the how empires rely on marketing or propaganda, uh, but those might be synonyms. Uh,
You know what? As you're saying it, they might as well be. They might as well be, because really, what is marketing but propaganda that blah 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 company or blah 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 individual has exactly what you want all the time? I
yeah,
mean, I knew someone in marketing, and I told him, "Oh, so how is it working in emotional manipulation?" He's like, "It's going great. We just bought a house."
no, yeah, it's whether it is made for making you buy. Can we say brands here?
Yeah, you can say brand.
Whether it is to make you buy Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi, or support the genocide that is going on in Israel. Uh, uh, it's it comes from the same uh, principles, which are psychology,
Right.
and and basic principles like acting out of fear, uh, basically uh, appealing to the most uh,
Basic.
basic characteristics of the human brain, uh, but with very different intentions, depending on what the message, on what's the purpose of the the person who designs that propaganda. Uh, but so empires rely on propaganda, from North Korea to the United States, uh, with the Nazis in the middle, in between.
Nazis we made, by the way.
Hmm.
I mean, seriously. What uh one of my college colleagues was talking about how Hitler was surprised that the U.S. and the U.K. were not on his side when Nazism took over Germany, because he was literally inspired by segregation in the United States. He was literally, and I think one of the reasons why we made the term Nazi so scary and so ridiculous is not just because of the horrors, but because we had to deflect. I mean, it's interesting that you were talking about psychology. One of the reasons why psychology has been so debased and ignored is because people who have designed a society that depends on manipulation wants everybody to see what they do as normal. And if there's a science behind it, and if you can choose patterns behind it, and if you can see how it's done, well, then the game's over. And basically, it's like all of these people who spent decades living comfortably while ignoring the atrocities that the United States was enacting. And I say United States, it could just as easily be France or the United Kingdom or Germany or the Netherlands. After all, it was the Dutch East India Trading Company first. Um, it's it was very easy to see why comfortable people ignore bad things, because if people paid attention to bad things, well, then that would by association make them also bad people, which is one of the reasons why we're not taught, why, everybody's screaming about migration. It's like, yeah, that's fine. All right, no more slave labor for the agricultural industry. Well, nobody would eat anything in the U.S. Them's just facts. We don't want migration. The hospitality industry collapses. You're welcome. And I don't just mean in the United States. Like, that's what the quote unquote luxury market is. Despite Indiana Jones not being the best example, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was a fantastic depiction of how luxury hides the uglier side of how people exist. And the reason why Empire appeals to people is they don't want to have to think about those things. Those things are hard.
I just saw a TikTok this morning about criticizing how Peter Jackson got it wrong with the Lord of the Rings movies, because outside of all of the cities, all of the huge cities that he portrays, like Minas Tirith and so on, none of them seem to have cropping fields around them.
It's magic. People just feed themselves with magic. They magically have food and then they're amazed.
Yeah, but he goes on and says, but you know who got it actually right? Shrek.
That's true. There was never a moment in Shrek. I mean, now that you mention that, where there was one moment in Lord of the Rings, and that was because Frodo, uh, Frodo's friends, Pippin, and I'm going to forget the other one. Mary. There, thank you.
Mary and Pippin.
And I had crushes on both Dominic Monaghan and the other guy. That was ridiculous. Basically, they were stealing crops So that was the only point
Oh yeah, but that's only outside of
of the Hobbit
of the
Town.
Hobbit town.
Of the Hobbit Town, no, right. But all of these other people, they're above those primitive urges. They
Yeah.
just have magical, their food is, they're magically receive nutrition, and that's what it is.
While as in Shrek, for example, outside of in Shrek One at least,
Oh,
uh, outside of the village of this uh, dictator of this outside of this castle,
Lord
Lord
Farquaad, yeah.
Farquaad, it's surrounded by cropping fields,
Right.
and actually the people who go after Shrek, they are they are peasants.
Yes,
They
they
and
are.
their tools are cropping tools.
No, the what's it? The torches and pitchforks
Yeah,
element
pitchforks,
of protest
shovels.
that is always about the working class, and that is why everybody is, and that is basically the fear of the elites, that people will come at the gates with our torches and pitchforks,
Yeah,
basically communicating that we don't want to work for them anymore.
yeah,
But the trick is that if you have a big enough and a strong enough gate, you don't have to worry about the torches and the pitchforks.
yeah.
But also, it's funny that you mentioned TikTok, because TikTok is supposed to be on the verge of getting banned in the United States.
Yeah,
And why is that? Why is TikTok about to get banned?
because it's owned by Chinese capital.
No, it is owned by a guy from Singapore.
Ah,
It is owned by a guy from Singapore. And Tom Cotton, whose name just sounds so antebellum, and by antebellum I mean before the Civil War in the United States, was desperately trying to make Singapore and China the same country, and they are not. But because we have such, like, we have not evolved past Cold War propaganda. That was why Biden had a chance to be the president. Was he a good choice? He was not. He was terrible. He basically did nothing for anybody who wasn't rich. And for everybody who is comfortable, who is listening to me say that Biden didn't do anything for anybody who wasn't rich, forget you. Because very few people benefited from the majority of his policies, and most of them were wealthy. But basically, why was Biden able to be the oldest president? Because everybody was still inspired by the fact that he was the youngest senator when he got into office, and he served with Barack Obama, and it's basically all of this stuff in the past. So another reason that people choose empire is because there's euphoric recall. Like, people don't think about things like Vietnam. People don't, older people don't care about segregation. They say, but it's over, get over it. And nobody considers that somebody who has old ideas, including Bernie Sanders and everybody else, is not the right person to deal with now. Like, you and I, like, we had this conversation. I was like, if you want to buy a house, forget it. Like, that's not something that I want to that I want to do. And basically, home ownership, believe it or not, was supposed to be a way to enforce segregation, because it was a way to allow people to control the people around their house. College degrees were supposed to barricade non-white people from good jobs. And the fact that there were historically black colleges and universities and historically Latino colleges and universities, which nobody talks about. And by nobody, I mean the majority of people that I know. Uh, People are like, oh, those colleges were never good as the Ivy Leagues or the state schools or whatever. And people say that because it was designed to serve as a barrier. And basically, people who have old ideas like Cold War and we're afraid of China and Venezuela's awful. It's like when you know that you have nothing good going for you, you tell everybody else that they're crap. That's actually a big thing.
Using propaganda.
Right. And who's the biggest propagandist in US history? I do know this. It's Thomas Jefferson.
Hmm.
Thomas Jefferson was basically the best propagandist in US history. He is such a great propagandist that people are still using his words over 200 years after the inception of this country. That's how good our propaganda is. Somebody said the best export that the United States has is its racism. And I would debate that and say our best export is our propaganda. Because if you use, because you went to McDonald's in France, went to McDonald's in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So that means that they had to believe in those countries had to believe in the idea of McDonald's and that people would eat there and that it would raise profits, and it did. Google everywhere in the world. Why isn't anybody saying, "Hey Google, are you looking at our data?" Spoiler alert, they are. No, but we're saying it's bad that TikTok does it because we can't compete and so we cheat. That's a huge aspect of the United States. And being able to control messaging is basically existence. Because an empire doesn't just exist. You have to believe that the empire exists. Like, Rome doesn't exist if people were like, why are these dudes in sandals coming over to our house? This is very strange. Like, Germany, the German Empire does not exist if people say, ich spreche kein Deutsch, which is German for I don't speak German. Like the people, like the Queen of England is only the Queen of England and nowhere else. All you sycophants who worship an imperialist, unless people believe in the idea of the United Kingdom. And so, yeah, go ahead.
But that's why they rely on symbols. They didn't need to speak the language of the place that they controlled. That's why they used symbols like the Union Jack flag or the Nazi flag or
Hammer and sickle
yeah,
for communism.
or when Spain conquered the new Spain, now
You mean like Mexico?
now called Mexico. They didn't speak the language, but it's like somebody, like you said a few days ago, that somebody told you that something regarding about a news saying that Donald Trump is going to send back Chinese immigrants,
Yes, that was literally in the news. We're now sending back Chinese migrants.
and
Like what?
I think somebody told you that uh, yeah, but the CBP, the Control Border Protection or Center for Border Protection,
The see, I see BP. No.
CBP. Somebody told you that, yeah, but they don't speak they don't speak Mandarin, so that's not gonna happen.
Right. I said that they don't speak Mandarin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to.
No, they don't. And it's ironic. And it's ironic because it's like you can tell people to get out of your country, but if they don't understand you, what are you telling them? Like that's the other thing. It's like, but
You use the force.
well, no, and that's really why people choose empire. Remember when I just said it's like, how do you avoid the torches and the pitchforks? You have a big enough and a strong enough gate, and that's it. That's all you got.
Yes, but those migrants don't have those.
No, but we do. And we have a huge, and not the border wall. For anybody who's confused, no, that border wall is not real. No. and, but it's because if you, after days of getting lost through the desert, you meet somebody with an AR-47 and they tell you
AK-47.
Oh, yes, it's AR-15,
AR-15.
AK-47. Thank you. What kind of Texan am I? I'm now going to have to say that I am from... No. No, but basically, you have to... You respect the force. And that's it. By the way, I have actually fired an AR-15 because I was nervous around guns, but I was like, I need to actually get over this fear, not because it's something that I want to own, but because being afraid of something gives people power. And that's the other thing. Mm-hmm. Force to inspire fear gives people power over others. And
that's why they don't have to speak Mandarin,
right,
to kick them out, if that's really what's going to happen.
Well, and here's the thing. It's already a circus. It's already a circus. It's a circus because there has been so much nonsense promoted. And this is why the news, more than anything, is responsible for fascism. In the United States, in Nazi Germany, in apartheid South Africa, in Israel and Gaza, the news is responsible because the news keeps going for whatever is popular. Well, if you go for whatever is popular, then you tell the same story. It's like you said once, change the words, change the history. And the United States is uniquely talented to change the words so that we look like heroes and saviors when we are looters and pillagers of other countries. And now in this era of mainstream media being able to plug into your phone and all over television, I mean, the reason history keeps repeating itself is not only because everybody has similar instincts, but because when the winners tell the history, it's just a question of who's the winner this time. But the challenge that we have, and you've heard me say this way too many times, bless you for listening, now the losers can tell a story. Now the losers can share reality. Now the losers can contradict the dominant narrative, which is the real reason why TikTok is under attack.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say, oh no, Israel is being harassed by when you see a Palestinian who hasn't had food for 3 days on their smarty phone saying, I don't know why you hate me so much. I don't even know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's like you can't have a, oh, they hate us because we have this, that, and the other thing when you're looking at drones being fired on schools.
Yeah.
Like Biden issued just gave permission for Ukraine to use long range missiles
Yeah.
against Russia. So, and here's why Biden is a relic of the Cold War era. He has nothing new to add. The people around him have nothing new to add. But they need a successful war, which is why the United States has been at war for over 20 years. Because if we don't have a war, who are we? That's the force.
Yeah.
Like the empire doesn't exist without force. And so the idea that everything's going to remain the same and we'll keep having force, it's why people are starting to look at the United States in the same way everybody looks at a bully when they're tired of dealing with that bully. That friend who isn't so great when things aren't going so great. They're kind of sighing and they're walking away because we've been a propaganda machine for so long. We don't know what to be other than that.
Do you remember this episode of The Simpsons where Bart is competing against Martin for president of the class?
Yes.
And
Lisa Simpson is supposed to be helping Martin.
I don't remember that, but I do remember that Martin is posting signs all over the school that say, a vote for Bart, it's a vote for anarchy. And in serif font and very like a very well designed, or like with all of the budget of his campaign probably put onto those signs, while Bart is posting a sign that says exactly the same. It says, a vote for Bart, it's a vote for, but then anarchy is greeting with
the anarchist A.
Yeah, or no, I don't think he uses that A, but it's written with
like graffiti.
Like, yeah, like with a graffiti font, and even with an exclamation mark. And so it's like both signs said the same thing, but it's the design behind it, or the words that, even though in this case the words were the same, that's the power of campaigns, or the power of propaganda, because with design you can say a lot of things.
You don't even have to change those words.
Yeah.
You can literally just change the font, and all of a sudden something is a scary idea.
Yeah, but the psychology behind it, the colors, that's what's amazing to me. That I don't know if psychologists pledge the is it called the oath?
The Hippocratic Oath.
Hippocratic Oath,
think
like
that
doctors?
Now psychiatrists do. in the United States because psychiatrists are also medical doctors.
Ah,
But
I don't think psychologists do, but there's a lot of like work, a lot of psychologists working for
for marketing,
and propaganda.
that's their job. Like uh, I literally knew somebody who was getting her master's, in the process of getting her master's in psychology, and they put her as a recruit for a major company.
Wow.
And that's a recruiter for a major company. But that's the thing. I mean, I'm sure if we talk to the people in your family who go into marketing, I'm sure they would say, "Oh, you little ducklings."
It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Well, and people like to say that they're not prey to propaganda. A photograph is propaganda if positioned correctly.
Yeah.
Like, all you see is a picture. It's one of the reasons why artificial intelligence and Photoshop and all of these ways to digitally edit photos make so much money.
Yeah.
Because it's powerful. Because if you're looking at it with your eyes, how do you know it's fake? You don't know. All you know is what you see.
Definitely. What's the saying? An image speaks a
A
thousand
thousand
words.
words, and picture speaks 1,000 words. Yes.
Yeah, the power of the images, the power of design, but the psychology behind that, uh, when it's used, like Hitler wouldn't have done what he did if it hadn't been because of his media campaign, uh, uh, designed
Goebbels.
by Goebbels.
Like that, like it doesn't exist. But here's the thing: we are also so focused on Hitler. Nobody talked about King Leopold, who killed millions of Africans. Nobody paid attention to that because we were all so focused on on Nazi Germany. But that's getting ahead of myself.
Again, yeah, but that's because we've been fed by the media.
Right.
Because again, it's the propaganda of the Nazis were the bad guys and the
U.S. was the great guys.
and the U.S. and the U.K. and France and Russia were the good guys. When I saw talking about TikTok, I saw a funny TikTok about an Irish guy uh, doing this sketch of being like, so are you telling me that the UK were the good guys? And the other person goes like, yeah, the UK, the United Kingdom. And the other person goes, yes, Churchill. Yeah. And the Irish person goes like, Winston Churchill. Like, really? And the
And
other
the person
goes,
is saying yes with a straight face.
And he was like, wow, really? Because, of course, like we are going to mention in the next episode, one thing we learned on our visit to the bunker where Hitler allegedly committed suicide uh, was that Churchill and Roosevelt, they knew
And here's the
about
thing.
what was going on in Germany, what was going on to what was happening to the Jewish population in Germany. They knew.
Well, and here's the other thing. Speaking about right now, with the United States empire right now, we know what the United States is doing in other countries. It's not a secret. Like their university degrees in what the US is doing because it's so because there's so much information now. Like you can't lie about it anymore.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like they knew that that was going on, and still they hadn't entered the war. They entered the war not because of good versus evil, or they entered the war because of political interests.
Because they bombed Pearl Harbor. If the Japanese
No, that was way after that. I am talking about the England entered the war because Germany started bombing the UK. Germany started bombing England, but
and that's
before,
why the US entered too.
yeah. But what I mean is, what they wanted, like what the movies propaganda tells us is, they entered the war because they found out what Germany was doing to Jewish people
And it was
population,
awful
and it was
and
awful, and they decided
to step
to
up
be the
and the
heroes.
USA and
No,
America. Yes, us, which I'm cleaning up.
but it wasn't. That wasn't the case. They knew that the atrocities were being committed, but they were keeping their mouths shut because they were also committing atrocities.
Right, because what, and there are a couple of movies that go into this, but there were signs against Jewish people in the United States. There were signs all over the place saying anti-Jew and anti-Semitic signs. And so the mythology that the United States was this beacon of freedom, no, it wasn't. Not even for Jewish people who basically, if you are a black person, look basically white. Like there is no confusion. And in fact, uh, that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons why they had them wear stars, because otherwise they couldn't tell. But basically, people choose the empire because that is an easy decision. It's the person with the biggest gun. It's the most conveniences readily available in the most places.
Yeah.
It's knowing what to expect.
Yeah, everybody loves a winner.
Right.
Like I don't give a fuck about sports, but if tomorrow I suddenly were like, you know what, I'm gonna watch football,
Right.
and I will be like, okay, which team will I root for? Well, of course, the best one. I'm gonna root for the winner. Everybody loves a winner. Uh, that's why also a lot of people like Trump or Hitler or those big, huge political figures. Uh, I feel like a lot of the power that they get is because of momentum.
And that's it.
Is they are so powerful, that, or at least they are powerful enough to overcast a shadow on the weakest people, on the least fortunate people, on the most oppressed people, and so they root for the winner. Everybody loves a winner, so they they uh, increase this momentum.
Well, and here's the thing. We're so busy saying we want to focus on a winner that we didn't even realize, wait, why are we having a competition? And if people say, well, biologically, everything's a competition and a struggle, and it's like, yeah, but I thought if human beings are supposed to be intellectual, then we shouldn't be struggling over basic needs.
Are we?
Right? Like, that's apparently the argument that people make. That's the whole Darwinism, survival of the fittest. And I'm like, but it makes no sense. Everything can't be a competition because then that means that human supremacy is invalid. That means that basically there's no reason why human beings are more important than any other animal on the planet.
I would say that we are wired to reproduce and guarantee the continuity of the species.
Right, that's it. I would not say that we are geared to compete. I think that competition is something that malignant individuals insist on because without competition, there is no winner. And without a winner, they don't get to be in control. And winning is supposed to be synonymous with control because basically people have conditioned us all to believe, well, if you won, then you get to control the other. No, maybe you just won that soccer game and it's fine. Maybe you just beat somebody in a race and it's fine. But maybe you didn't but if you didn't have to, what would you do? And that's really what we're in the midst of right now. That's the precipice that we're hanging at right now. What would we do if we didn't spend all of our time propagandizing everybody to follow our force and control? Something else. And the notion that we've got to do that we're trying to figure out what else to do other than what we've done this entire time, it's actually driving a lot of people who are in power insane because when you're trained to compete, you don't have any other purpose in reality. You really don't. If you're trained to compete, then when you're not competing, you don't know what to do with yourself.
Yeah.
And the concept of having a peaceful and restful existence is actually punishment for you because you are so used to being in control and competing and winning that you don't know what life is like without that. So, does that mean that people are correct in choosing empire? No, including myself. But that does mean that there have to be critical masses of people who decide to do something else. And the reason why people choose the empire is because they don't want to have to think about it.
Well, yeah, but another way of seeing it might be going back to the thing about reproduction and the survival of the continuity of the species. Uh, People go like migrants migrate because they are going after better opportunities for their families,
Right.
or again, uh, providing and
For survival.
yeah, for survival. So they root for empires because as soon as they migrate to a different country, they are like, look, I I love the country that gives me food. I love the country uh, that provides for me and my family and my loved ones, and allows me to thrive. And if the country where I was born does not do that, well, God bless America in this case, or Germany, or the UK, or
Or
France,
wherever it
or the
is.
Netherlands, or um, you and I saw it and talked about it last episode when we talked about what we saw on my cousin and his partner They migrated to the Netherlands to study a master. They studied the master, and now she's going for the PhD. But they 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 have absorbed as much as they could as they could as they have been possible to absorb about the culture of that country, and they have this thing of being like, no, 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 I'm happy, I'm happy, happy, happy. They have this, or they exude or radiate this like
Anxiety
anxiety
about
about,
not fulfilling it.
yeah, about fitting in, about, no, don't do that because they will look at you weird, and they will shout at you, no, don't walk on the sidewalk, don't walk on the bike lane, or do this or do that, or don't look at the inside of the windows of people, or and I'm like, wow, so are you really happy to be here? Are you really thriving? Like, to me, you seem a bit anxious,
You seem a little tense.
a little tense. Exactly.
Well, and here's what's funny. I mean, and this is where it's lovely being black. No one likes us. Dee.
Yeah.
Basically, no one likes us. Everybody looks at us weird. We're not supposed to be anywhere other than Africa. And if we are from the United States in Africa, we're not really supposed to be there either, according to a lot of different Africans. So basically, because nobody ever accepts us, we are not like there's no chance for me to follow those rules. And so the idea of everybody chasing empire is also confusing for me, because I'm just like, why don't y'all get over yourselves? Like, nobody expects you to do XYZ. But people would rather be tense and follow rules than live lives, which is also something that's interesting to see.
That's an advantage.
Yeah. Which advantage?
Well, you will never bow to a master hoping that the master will like you, because you know that the master will never like you. So you're like, well, then I'll just do me.
Well,
That's a kind of freedom.
it is, but it also took a long time to get there. I mean, I tried to do Iron Man and I went to Yale, so I'm not as free as I would have most people believe.
You
But
went the full circle.
right, I did. I made that full circle because basically when I saw that imperially nobody wants to respect batteries, I'm like, well, then I can either keep pouring all of these resources into being respected, or I can pour into myself. And that is, and pour into my community and pour into that. Because people who appreciate me, who I appreciate, are going to do the right thing.
I will say cheers to that, but I ran out of tea.
Well, next time you hear from us, we will be discussing Berlin. And like I said,
I can't wait.
oh my gosh, we have so much Berlin. Because remember, Germany has now been, as people understand it, an empire, a republic, and yes, it was a monarchy, but nobody alive lived under the monarchy, so forget that. And also a branch of communism. So,
Wow.
so I know.
I hadn't seen it from that perspective. Wow.
Look, like I said, there's a lot to talk about with Germany, especially since you can still see remnants of all of it.
The Fourth Reich.
Yes. So yes. So yes.
Oh, the Third Reich.
The
No,
third. Yes, it's the Third Reich. No, the United States is becoming the Fourth Reich. Don't take our
Yeah, no,
fascism away from us,
no.
sir.
I was thinking
It
of
is
the
ours.
Mexican fascism with the 4T, the
Oh,
fourth transformation.
wait, what? What? Wait, no, who's trying to take over the Fourth Reich? I'm calling the CBP. Customs and Border Patrol.
That's for
That's
another episode.
Customs and Border Patrol, by the way, for all my fellow gringos who are pulling their hair out wondering why I don't know what it is. Yes, Customs and Border Patrol. But yes, thank y'all for listening, and we will see you in Berlin.
Bye.
Bye.